Today, I have a very special guest, Rabbi Josh Kaller.
One of the great sages was asked, teach me the entire Torah on one foot. And this was what he said, right? You should love your friend like you love yourself. Are you in love with yourself?
Yes.
Are you? Why has Judaism been around for 3,336 years? Like, what is it that's kept this thing going?
People believe in the flat earth conspiracy theories. So I think the capacity for human beings to believe in things contrary to evidence is very, very high.
Flat earth theorists require no personal skin in the game.
How do you know that it's real?
No, when we think about blockchain technology, it's the perfect metaphor.
Was there like a trigger or a point where you realized like, hey, this is the way I want to live life?
Shabbos saved my life. That was a transformational experience for me. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know this was Judaism. I wish they would have told me this earlier.
Do you believe people are fundamentally good or bad?
I'm trying to build a business. It's very hard to raise money. Like, what do I do?
Building anything worthwhile, it's always a struggle. Like, how does someone stay positive like when they're facing rejection and failure constantly?
The first thing that needs to be calibrated is your...
Rabbi Kaller, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me over here. Excited.
I'd never received my Jewish conspiracy check.
It's in the mail.
Okay. So maybe just walk us through kind of your background. How did you get into being a rabbi? Why, as opposed to just going and making money?
That's a great question.
Doing something more productive, like making money? Yeah.
So I think I'm in the world of true productivity, but so is everyone. I think everyone has a different calling and mission. My background is diverse, meaning I came with an undergraduate degree in English and linguistics and teaching English as a second language and classics, and was like, what are you gonna do with that? And then eventually I ended up becoming more of a social entrepreneur. And I started during that time in undergraduate, a volunteer organization called Student World Assembly. It was part of like a national operation. And we were basically given the license to like do good. So I actually built in that time when I was at University of Florida, a educational social entrepreneurship program where I went into a place of transitional housing. So people who are living in transitional homes, maybe for months, maybe for years.
These are homeless people, basically?
They were once homeless, and now they live in these transitional housing, which means helping them get on their feet. And I decided to create an educational program to help them get their GED and then transition them into university or college for free.
So GED is like a high school diploma, right?
Yeah, in the States where I'm from, a GED is like your general educational diploma. So if you don't get a high school degree, you can get your GED and then you can apply for college or university. That's how it works in the States. So I said, like, let's help these people get an education. I really believed in education tremendously. And that was my first stint of like social entrepreneurship. So I got together an entire robust team of volunteers from the community members, including students. The students were able to get volunteer credits. The members were getting feel-good experiences, and the recipients were receiving free education that can help them grow. And like we had successfully one graduate from the program.
Wow.
But that person's life is transformed. He ended up enrolling into Santa Fe Community College in Florida and ended up enrolling in HVAC and getting a career, right, and moving on. And I felt like it was worth it just for one person. And I feel like that mindset is encaptured in Judaism. The world's made for me, not in an egotistical way, but that there's a sense of responsibility. And I felt like by even doing that one program for one student, that was worth it. And I feel like that's the underwriting philosophy to so much. So now I graduated. I actually wound up getting my master's degree, right, and joining and getting my law degree as well at American University in DC. And then when I was there, I was also doing more social entrepreneurship experiences, helping really social entrepreneurs grow. There was one program I was a part of that really was there to help create an accelerator program for entrepreneurs. At the same time, I also developed my own nonprofit for Jews called Gather the Jews with a few of my friends. And we ended up just like building and building and building and building. So I'm just like involved in just like seeing and trying to help individuals like grow and become their ultimate best.
So you studied to become a lawyer.
Yeah. So
Did you ever practice?
I did practice. I'm still a barred attorney. I'm still barred in the state of Florida, not practicing right now, but I'm still barred in Florida, and I still help my family in commercial dealings that they have in South Florida. So I'm definitely still have my legal mind at work at times. And I worked right afterwards, working as my own practitioner for Kaller Esquire Incorporated. And then until I ended up deciding that I had more that I wanted to do. And one of the main ambitions that I had was learning more about my Judaism. I went to a day school all my life. And then when I was like 18 or 19, I really had like a transformational experience. I felt like I really want to learn more. And that vein of learning more carried through with me all the way through undergraduate to graduate school and beyond. And that's why after graduate school, after a year of working, I said, you know what, I really want to double click and deep dive in my religion and understand, why has Judaism been around for 3,336 years? Like, what is it that's kept this thing going? And even though I was already like trying to keep Shabbos and trying to keep kosher, I had my own things that I was still learning about. And it was a journey for me. And then at the age of 27 and a half, I enrolled in Yeshiva, which is a full-time learning experience where you double down and understand what Judaism's about. And that was a transformational experience for me. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know this was Judaism. I wish they would have told me this earlier. And it really brought me to a new energy, a new mindset of how I really thought I wanted to contribute to the world.
That's fascinating. So you didn't grow up religious?
No,
So
I grew up traditional.
Traditional. Okay.
Traditional.
You know, most people, there's a kind of a meme or a canard that people that become religious is because they're going through struggles in life and they want to they need something to anchor them, in this difficult and uncertain world, Was that your experience as well? Like, why did you feel that you needed, religion?
I didn't come through that portal in a lot of ways. A lot of my sense of Judaism came from a sense of like seeing optimization, seeing the opportunity to grow. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there was one moment and patch in my life that was a struggle point, but that was a minority. When I look at really the totality of what has brought me closer to Judaism, it was really the sense of realizing like this is a gold medalist guiding system towards personal actualization and soul actualization. And I realized it was something that, I've been to, undergraduate, graduate school, and I've spent a lot of time learning. And I realized like this is an educational system like nothing like you've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And even learning Gemara, learning Talmud, and seeing like, whoa, like what they can pack in just a few lines of Gemara is like 20 pages of legal text.
Right.
Right.
It's fascinating because a lot of people on Twitter, they learn Gemara very quickly and then they post their findings, so that's very interesting. And usually it's interesting stuff they post on there. So I imagine it probably takes a lot longer than an afternoon to learn.
I've been learning Gemara full time for 13 years now. And, it's a continued exercise of patience, diligence, thoughtfulness, and also realizing there's a context, right? So oftentimes when people are learning Gemara, you look at one piece, but that's like, imagine like taking this podcast and only showing 5 seconds of it before it's a controversial piece. But wait a second, what was said before and what was said afterwards? And when you look at the context, oftentimes context resolves so many things, which is where today we don't have time for context.
Was there like a trigger or point where you realized like, hey, this is the way I want to live life? Was there like a moment or is it more gradual?
It was
or an idea even?
It was really one of the major shaping pieces was Shabbos. Like when I was beginning my journey, right? Shabbos became like this oasis in time and space and place. Like I remember like there was a rabbi who came out to the Senior University of Florida, Rabbi Schiller, God bless him, and his wife, Rabbi Schiller. And I remember like they were there as an adjunct like staff to help within the Hillel house students grow, and it was beautiful. They really knew how to like find like students and get to them in a way that was very meaningful. I remember like going to like these massive like Hillel Shabbos dinners, and then like Rabbi Yonah being like, "Hey, okay, let's go." Like, where are we going? And he would take us to his house. It would be like a meal for like 5 of us, and like we would have Shabbos dinner there, and it was warm, intimate, homemade hummus with like homemade earthenware.
Free food?
Of course, free food.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but it was just like it was a certain warmth and just like depth that you can't feel sometimes in the masses. And that really started opening me up. I realized, what is the Shabbos thing? And I realized, I always say that like Shabbos saved my life. Shabbos saved my life. It's actually a very deep idea. The Orach HaMakodesh brings this down that there's a specific Tehillim that Adam Harishon articulated.
Adam from like the Bible.
Adam Harishon, yeah, Adam. And
the Adam and Eve.
And it starts Mizmor Shir Liyom Shabbos, a song for Shabbos. So there's like a big question, like Adam is ascribed to only have written one Tehillim. Why is his Tehillim referring to Shabbos as like the first line? Mizmor Shir Liyom Shabbos. So the answer is because it was actually in the merit of Shabbos that Adam Harishon survived. Because he was supposed to have been enacted the death sentence for having eaten from the tree of good and evil and immediate death. But Shabbos, as an advocate, said, hey, wait a second. Sunday has Monday, Monday has Tuesday, Wednesday has Thursday. I'm Shabbos, and you told me that I'm going to have the Jewish people. If you get rid of Adam, there's no Jewish people. I'm going to be all alone. And in that merit of that claim, God's like, okay, guy, we're not killing you. We're going to give the chance to be, so to speak, the burgeoning of the spiritual seed called the Jewish people through you in the merit of Shabbos. And when Adam Harishon realized that, when he realized it, how he was another discussion, but when he realized that, he sang Mizmor Shir Liyom Shabbos. This is a song for Shabbos. I had a sense of gratitude that Shabbos saved his life. And I feel similar also. I feel like Shabbos really opened me up to spirituality that I never would have realized beforehand. And it opened me up to everything else.
That's fascinating. That's a very difficult thing to do. From the outside, and I keep Shabbat as well, right? And it was not easy to start and all those things. But to not use your phone, not use electricity, not drive anywhere, it's like for 25 hours and then the holidays also, it's like it seems like a tall order. Like it really does.
You're like, as you say it, I'm like, oh, spiritual jacuzzi. I'm like, yes, put me back in. I'll tell you, when I was an undergraduate and I had my phone, I didn't even have a smartphone at the time. It was way back, but it was just a regular phone. I was still so busy. And when I started turning off my phone, my flip phone, right, for Shabbos, I felt so relaxed. Like it was like, I don't have to answer you. I don't have to respond right now. And that freedom that it gave me is something that still something I feel even today. And I look forward to turning off that phone. I look forward to not getting away from my pockets of keys and pockets of credit cards and just divesting myself of all those things and just being like, I now get to be a human and be present. Nothing else is around me other than my orbit of my life. And that mindfulness and that presence is really makes the present a gift. And I'm really able to just tap into it. And I was just teaching a class this past Monday, talking to my students about the 3-day Yom Tov, the infamous 3-day experience of 72 hours of divestiture of electronics. And I feel like a human being after.
Meaning the 3 days when you have certain holidays that are attached to Shabbat, you have, instead of just one day of not using electronics or whatever, it's 3 straight days.
That's right, because usually it's a holiday, 2-day holiday outside of Israel, plus a Shabbos either at the end or at the beginning, however it works out. Yeah, like that is an oasis of time that I treasure because I get to just fully immerse myself in life.
One of the things that surprised me when I started to get more involved in the Jewish scene is that there's plenty of like very successful business people, billionaires, multi-billionaires that keep Shabbat. My first thought was like, okay, come on, man. Like, you check your emails, check your whatever. Because how do you step back for one day a week and have no access to any of these things? And it was very shocking because they did it and they're very successful. And it was a bit of a learning experience that, like, you know, at some point, if you take that time off the table, you become more productive throughout the rest of the week. Not just practically speaking, but, you know, you take a break, you kind of let your mind think more about the more important things. It's like even in a business, you have to take a step back and focus on the mission once in a while so that you can go and implement that.
Sure. They look, working on the business or working in the business,
right?
Those are two different modalities of development, right? Also, Stephen Covey calls it sharpening the saw, right? You have to take time to sharpen your saw, which that's the metaphor for him, which is taking time for thoughtful reflection. He didn't say keep Shabbos, but as a Torah observant Jew, you know, using Shabbos wisely sharpens your saw. You're able to reflect, allow yourself time to breathe, allow yourself time to go over the weekly happenings and also forget them, right? The Baal Shem Tov is the founder of the Hasidic movement in the 18th century. And he created an entire whirlwind of a system. We're not going to go into it now, but he forever changed a paradigm of how Jews can relate to Judaism and to each other. Now, he used to have at his meal on Friday night farfel, which is like wheat, like a sort of like wheat that was made over. It's like a wheat dish, I forgot how to describe it. It's like almost like a stuffing. It's a Jewish stuffing, basically. And the Jewish stuffing, he would serve it specifically because in Yiddish, the word for farfel is similar to the word farfalin, which means it's happened. It's in the past. And the message he was teaching people through the dinner was saying like, hey guys, Shabbos is here, farfalin. It's in the past. Whatever happened, all the business happenings, all the contracts, all the frustrations, all the stress, farfalin. It's in the past. We're now here in Shabbos mode. Focus on now.
Right. So you seem like, you know, I've known you for a number of years. We never were that close or anything, but you seem like a very intelligent guy, right? You know, you're
working on it.
You have your life together. You know, you were a lawyer. It's a question that I've struggled with myself, and I know a lot of people that are probably listening. It's like, come on, you know, religion is a bit of a. You took a leap of faith. You know, like what rational reason is there to believe any of this stuff is true? I can buy, for example, I'm speaking on behalf of people right now, not myself, but like I can buy the fact that it's a better way to live life. Like I can get there, right? But you know, there's a lot of good ways to live life. It's one thing to live a nice life, but it's nothing to live, you know, with a false ideology. Meaning, like, how do you know that it's real?
Great questions. So these are fundamentals of Judaism 101. And there's two questions really within your question. Number one is, how do I know God is real? Right? You got to start there. Because if you don't know God is real and you're not tapping into a God reality, right, then forget about any of the brands, so to speak, right? How do I do anything? So are we asking that question, or are we asking, now that I know that God is real, assuming God to be real, how do I know that Judaism is the right product? Right. So which question do you want to double click on?
Well, I think embedded in the question is both questions, because validity to something means that, you know, I don't believe you can come to certainty on anything. I don't think anyone really claims that. But you have to get to a certain level of comfort that what you're doing is valid.
Okay. So interesting. So I just want to double click on one thing. You said you can't get to the level of certainty, but think about it. What's 2 + 2?
Is that a trick question?
No, it's not, but it proves the point that there is certainty. You know, it's funny. I had a conversation with ChatGPT. I call it ChatGPT. Right. When we're discussing, you know, I was trying to see if it was able or willing to agree that Torah Judaism is the authentic, awesome religion and better than others, so to speak, in terms of validity, according to raw logic.
Let's hear it on one foot.
Yeah. So when I spoke now with ChatGPT, right, it was saying like, let's speak out, why is Judaism more logically valid or reasonably valid than other religions, right? And it doesn't take ChatGPT to do this. This is something that most, basic Kiruv rabbis and outreach rabbis should have underneath their belt, and most rabbis have underneath their belt, which is just obviously that Judaism itself is distinct in that it has a national revelation narrative. No other religion has that. Now, what's the difference? What does that mean? It means we claim millions of people saw one thing. Millions of people experienced the redemption. Millions of people saw the miracles of man falling from the sky. Millions of people saw the resolution of the rebellion of Korach, which are all stories in the Old Testament.
With miracles. These are open miracles that are part of the Bible.
Yeah, it's all in the
story,
Torah.
yeah.
These are all things that are in the Torah that are there. So there's a reality point of saying like, well, Jews are either validating or invalidating the story, right? And I almost look at it like, when we think about blockchain technology, it's the perfect metaphor to describe how we validate Judaism. Because what is blockchain? Blockchain is basically saying that one computer validates one agreement, and that basically then stuffs off the chain of motion that others validate that validation, right? And to the point where collectively everything is validated at this one point. So you can't change one piece of a puzzle unless it has to be counter-validated, right? Similarly, when you go to Australia, and you go to Panama, and you go to Peru, and you go to LA, and you go to Miami, and you go to Toronto, everyone's shaking the same esrog, citron, during Sukkot. Everyone is wearing black tefillin, the phylacteries, and they're not wearing pink ones, right? How'd that happen? Because everyone got the memo. The memo, right, was distributed at Mount Sinai, and that collective consciousness and communal consciousness was cemented. And the fact that you see the ripple effects and you see the continuation of the same Torah, literally the same words, the same letters. You open up a Torah in California, has to be the same Torah in Montreal and the same Torah in Australia. If one letter is off, it is pasul. It is prohibited to be read from. One letter. So that level of scrutiny and blockchaining, so to speak, is what happened at Mount Sinai. And no other world religion lays a claim to that, right? And plus you and I both know, sometimes, when it takes to convince a Jew of something, that takes a lot of work, right? Now convincing millions of them for thousands of years and at the cost of your life. If someone says something that you better go worship and bow down to this thing, right? According to Judaism, that's one of the 3 mitzvahs that we had to allow ourselves to be killed. Chas v'shalom. Heaven forfend.
So it's interesting. It's interesting you bring that up because I spent a lot of time on this particular topic. Maybe that is for a whole other.
Yeah, that's not the pilot or the profit or pivot podcast, but
yeah, but it's important because for anyone that's listening that's actually interested in this topic, there are kind of 2 approaches to this particular question. One is it's called in the philosophy circles, Gottlieb's gambit, right? That's probably the best person that's put this argument in a real philosophical setting. Rabbi David Gottlieb, he's at Or Sameach in Jerusalem, and he's written a couple books on this, and he's the one that's really dealing with the tough issues around this particular argument of national revelation being a way to validate the Jewish tradition, right? Meaning, in his argument is deductive. He's coming up with a principle in philosophy saying there's a certain category of historical event, and this category of historical event, if it happens to a particular nation, to the extent that you can validate it, it's always been validated to be true and never validated to be false. Meaning, if a nation experiences something and there's a tradition of it, and there's it's a complex philosophical argument once you look at the particulars. But let's just, for simplicity, say a national event like a war, miracles, certain things like this. But it doesn't have to be miracles. It could be any national event, like a natural disaster. And if the nation has a tradition of it, and we've been able to validate said tradition, meaning we have archaeological evidence or whatever, it's always proven to be true. So now you put the Jewish story, meaning the miracles in the Torah, and you put it onto that exact same template. Yeah. There's no reason not to believe it's true. The only reason you wouldn't believe it's true is because the consequence of it is that the Torah is valid. That would be the reason not to accept it, which is more of a bias against the Torah being valid.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people.
There's another Rabbi Kaller that comes in from a more of a inductive reasoning. I mean, he tries to use some sort of psychology that people won't accept. People, like, if you go to someone and tell them that you experienced XYZ or your parents experienced XYZ, they won't accept it because people don't think that way. I think it's a weaker argument, but it's an argument that's made.
I was taught from another one of my rabbis, Rabbi Fakenbaum. He said, it talked about green tails, right? Because if someone said to you, 400 years ago, Jews had green tails, you'd be like, what are you talking about? You'd be like, no, there's green tails. And you'd be like, prove it. Well, what'd you have to do to prove it? Right? You would have to go through a tremendous amount of historical identification. You have to go through forensics to get some photographs, get some pictures, get some real primary case examples. Show me something. Right? You're not just going to believe that we had green tails. Right. So this is similar to the point that, like, the point of at Solomon's temple, right, which is only 400 years post Moses, right? There was a global national recognition of the Jewish people being and operating. right? There was a temple. We have third-party historicity demonstrating that there was a temple standing and that everyone was believing in Moses Judaism at that time period. That was only 400 years before that. So if someone wanted to say like, well, you have to do these mitzvahs, keep these laws, which are very intense, tremendous amount, and they cover every single aspect of human life.
I've heard this argument. I've heard this argument before. I think it's a bit weaker because it relies on an understanding of how traditions develop, and it's much more complicated than that. I think, meaning you don't know the way people thought about things at the time. We don't know how traditions develop. I mean, we have an idea, but it's very possible that traditions develop, spontaneously over time. That's why I think the Gottlieb approach is better. Meaning,
we can agree to disagree on it. Meaning, there's a lot of nuance because it's kind of like evolution, right? If evolution is continuously process existing, then show it to me right now, right? Show it to me in real time because there has to be at least one moment.
Yeah.
Same thing with evolution of traditions. Right? Even traditions themselves have to be. If you show me spontaneous tradition making, which does exist, but is there longevity? Are people willing to commit their life to it, suffer death from it?
I think a lot of people believe in stupid things.
Well, that's true.
So I don't know, even today with all the evidence you can have about a particular topic, people believe in crazy things. People believe in the flat earth conspiracy theories. So I think the capacity for human beings to believe in things contrary to evidence is very, very high.
Well, I just want to, maybe we'll end it off on this point though, which is just the distinction is that flat earth theorists require no personal skin in the game. Meaning that's the difference I want to point to is that like my life has to be on the line, right? I have to invest in Judaism. Judaism is not asking for passive mindfulness or passive thought processes alone. It's saying you got to get up and do something, right? Flat earth theorists, they're still going to have no level of responsibility based on their philosophical point of view. Nothing changes for them, right? As opposed to us. And that's where I want to make that distinction between just thoughts versus the requirement that Judaism does ask of us.
I mean, man, you have an optimistic view of human beings, I think, which is probably important to have in your position. There are plenty of people that give up their lives and do terrible things on the basis of falsifiable ideologies. A lot. And I don't want to mention them on camera, but there are plenty.
Look, there's always going to be people who are driven by other motives and rationales, right? There's kina, taiva, kavod. There's jealousy, there's desire, there's honor, right? And those three things, those are massive drivers of people in the world today. And oftentimes when we look at any of these philosophies or theories, oftentimes they're just masking those three, right? Drivers. And if we were to do a psychological double click, we would probably see those things at the center of it. Oftentimes. So we can get into it. So that we're not here for the psychological breakdown of world religions or how people think, but.
Oh, why not? I mean, that's always a good topic.
Yeah.
But it's what's interesting. So just for anyone that's interested in this topic, I mean, I spent a lot of time on it. I'm sure, obviously, Rabbi, you clearly have as well. There's a couple of great books by Rabbi David Gottlieb. So if anyone's interested in this topic,
check him out.
It's just great. And I've had correspondence with him in the past, really asking him some of the difficult questions on this particular topic. One thing that I've noticed, and this is my personal, opinion, every time I encounter something difficult in the Torah, and there's plenty, if you just read the plain English, there's a lot of difficult things in there, right? That from like the way I grew up in the modern society, you come across very difficult, seemingly moral imperatives that are in there. And every time I do a deep dive and I really just say, let me just see what the tradition says about it, not like what people today are trying to do, say apologetics today, but like, let me look at what the tradition says. I always come out of it with a much greater appreciation for the tradition. Like I think I'm the guy that came up with this great question. It's like, no, this question's been asked
thousands of years, thousands of times, answered by thousands of rabbis.
In even more nuanced ways, and even ways that you can't even think of until you learn it. And it's not always emotionally satisfying because it's not always emotionally satisfying, but you come out of it thinking, okay, there's something pretty special here because they deal with some of the most complex moral issues in a very real way that you just don't experience just in your day-to-day or reading philosophy, just kind of as a layman. But okay, I want to go back to your story here. Why did you stop being a lawyer? Because it's, you're a Jewish guy in Florida, like, hey, it's probably a good life. You can make good money. What happened?
Yeah, I went into law firstly. I'm unique. I went to law because I'm an idealist, right? You have to remember, I came back from starting this social enterprise with social education, right? And then before going even into law school, I did something called AmeriCorps. So I was a part of something called City Year, where I worked as an education and literacy coach for disenfranchised and underprivileged children in Washington, D.C. and Southeast. I did that for an entire year, 2,000 hours of dedicated education, right? And and my desire was different. I didn't go into law school thinking like, I want to make money.
Really?
I didn't. I went into law school already with the mindset of saying like, I want to impact the world. I want the world to be a better place. I was already I tasted from undergraduate and then through, and then before I go into the AmeriCorps, like just the value of like helping and bringing change and transformation to people's lives. And I'm like, this is incredible. So I looked at law school as like a tool to have in order for me to influence the world. I said, when I go to law school, like it changes the dynamic. You walk into a room and people are like, oh yeah, you know, Josh Kaller, Rabbi Kaller, he's a lawyer and a master's degree. Don't forget that one. But you know, it changes the temper of how people perceive you. And I knew that was to be true. Already before that, I knew that to be true. And I said, if I want to make influence in the world, then that ethos, that credibility is essential. And so I said, let's do it. Let's go for it. So I made a big investment for it. And so, yeah, I ended up practicing law, and it has shaped the way that it gives me a broader toolkit and also like more of like a scalpel, right? To be able to cut through and not be afraid of verbiage and language and paperwork and bureaucracy. And I just said like, okay, how can we use this to change the world? And when I was in law school, I continued to do more social education, right? I built up that social entrepreneur program. I also did the Marshall Brennan Constitutional Law Project, which basically I went into, you know, that school I taught before I went to law school. Well, I went to the high school those kids ended up at, right? Which is one of the second most dangerous school in all of North America, right? And I went in there with my kippah and my bags and my idealism and saying like, I'm going to teach you constitutional law, but really I'm going to role model for you like a positive, optimistic way of living the world. And we work with students who...
It's like that movie with Michelle Pfeiffer. What's
oh, yeah.
Dangerous Minds?
Yeah. Exactly. Rabbi Kaller coming in. Like I wasn't Rabbi Kaller then. I was just Josh with a kippah, right? And I would go in and I would be there with a few of my other friends from law school. And like we were there to change lives. And I just felt at the end of the day, you know, there's so many lawyers, unfortunately, who do the career and are practicing their career and feel very financially fulfilled. But the other part of their lives are lacking. And I said to myself, like, I just don't feel like that's for me. I feel more of an entrepreneur. I feel more of a social entrepreneur. And I'll even phrase it like this: soul, S-O-U-L, entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, where I feel like investing in people's souls and giving people true life is like really, really what I want to make an impact on. And that mindset affected, obviously, how I redirected myself after law school, because I practiced law for about a year and I worked on a very big case going up against like David and Goliath case. Time for a whole other story for then. But I ended up working that case and saying like, I don't know if I want this life. And I felt like I felt something else that I wanted. And then going to Yeshiva just gave me like, oh, like it was a whole new implant in my brain. I'm like, this makes sense. This makes sense to me. This resonates with me. I feel like this is right. And so a few months stayed to a few years, ended up getting married, stayed back for a few more years in Yeshiva.
Oh my gosh. How many years did you spend?
I was 4 years in Yeshiva.
Wow.
And then I came back and I worked as an assistant rabbi at a local shul here while still learning mornings for 3 hours a day.
Here being Toronto?
Yeah, here being Toronto. And then, you know, and I've been learning since, and I've have like now people are like, oh, you're a lawyer. I'm like, you don't understand. I've like pentupled the amount of learning I've done in law school, if not more, in my Jewish studies than I have everything. So when people like, oh, wowed by that, I'm like, you don't realize, like, I'm like a white belt rabbi compared to other rebbeim that are out there. But like, it's just a never ending vastness, and there's just so much. But yet again, I'm still dedicated to continuing to chomp on through it and get my way through.
Right. It's quite fascinating because I also went to Yeshiva after university. I was 22, and it was it was such a culture shock because in university, I went to the top business program in Canada, and it's, you know, a lot of type A people, a lot of those people are very successful. And I think it was 20 hours of in class, and you're expected to do 20 hours at home, kind of like work. That was the expectation, I believe. And I go to Yeshiva, and like the expectation is you're learning 10 hours, 12 hours a day, like actual very difficult learning. Your mind has to be on, you know, it's very difficult. So it was just a different expectation, and it changes the way you think about learning about your day. You know, if you're taking it seriously, that means you're probably going to prayer 3 times a day, or you're really immersed. Like if you're going to do it, you should like be immersed in it, you know? And I was like, my goodness, in one day here, I'm basically doing more learning than I would do in a week in the best business university program, you know, where I'm coming from. And it just, your life is not the same after, even if you decide not to keep it up after. It's just, the whole perspective changes.
You know, it's funny. I think, you know, Hashem made me invest, you know, a lot of money in my law school so that I can gain the power of being able to sit. Sitting power, right? Where I could just sit for 8 hours at a time. I remember like, it was like, because in law school, you only get like one exam. That's it. You get like a final exam, and like that's your entire grade. One exam. Good luck, right? And I remember like it was business and contracts law. And I'm like, I went to the classes and I'm just like, I just didn't put enough time throughout the semester. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to dedicate 1 week and read 800 pages.
Oh my gosh.
And so I would sit down 9 a.m., get a nice breakfast, take care of myself, and be there till 9 p.m. and just sit and read and sit and read and crank and read and sit and read. And that was it. That was all I did. And so like going to yeshiva after that, I was like, no problem.
Mm.
You're gonna give me like a break, and I'm gonna get a lunch, and I get to schmooze with the guys, and I'm able to, go out for a little run, and I'm gonna be able to then come back and do. I'm like, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't scared. Like people go to all of a sudden you go to undergraduate university, right? Like think about it, in high school, I would spend it was like basically 7 in the morning because that's when I was in the car, but 8 until 4 p.m. Right? That's like just sitting doing things. Then you have like that 45 minutes for lunch. All of a sudden you go to university and you're like, I don't get it. You can't sit for 8 hours in one day. So what I'd actually, when in university, I would actually up like double load my classes. So in one day I would have 6 hours. So I'd have 2 days of classes only. And I would do all of my classes in those 2 days. Because I'm like, I can sit for 8 hours a day. And then when I got to law school, I'm like, I can sit for 8 hours a day. So when I got to yeshiva, like it wasn't so, that to me like was a big kindness that Hashem did. Because he's just like, yeah, like you have the muscle now. I think you're right. If people go from the expectation of like, you're gonna hang out for a few hours, you sit for a few hours, like you're right. It's harder to adapt the body and the mind for it. And that's why I feel very blessed and just the order of operations that Hashem put me through. It felt very natural for me at that time period. And actually, I'll tell you the truth, when I got to yeshiva, I was able to divest all of my social responsibilities. I didn't have any more nonprofits. I didn't have any more student organizations, right? I was leading student organizations for American University. So it was like 70 or 80 operations, and I was helping to orchestrate and manage and I'm like, it's all gone. And all of a sudden I could just like be for 8 hours or 10 hours a day learning, and I'd also have my own free time with nothing else. It was like Gan Eden. It was paradise.
So you're basically like running a small business. You have what, like 10 employees?
Today, yeah, we have around
Probably
10.
big budget, yeah.
We have 10 employees. We have over a 7-figure budget. It should be bigger, and I want it to be bigger. The whole goal of the budget for being bigger is obviously to make more impact, not just to have more money for money's sake. But we have around 10 employees and about 4 full-time, 6 part-time. And what we do with that is ultimately we create an engine of impact. We have several different organizations, operations that are happening in different programs. We operate pretty much 7 days a week. We have 7 different educational programmings on top of one-on-one classes, on top of providing Shabbos experiences, on top of providing worldwide trips. And we also act as concierge to help people connect with other community members. We have mentorship programs that are operating. We have continuous one-on-one development coaching available even outside of our staff.
Well, what's the overarching mission of the organization? Like, what does it exist to accomplish?
For me, I look at it. I think you ask every Olami branch around the world.
Most people don't know what Olami is, so maybe
So just to explain it, Olami is a global enterprise of a foundation that really contributes to over 185, maybe even more, operations around the world that are really there to empower and educate Jews between the ages of 18 to 32 years of age. So Olami Toronto sits here within Aish HaTorah, and we operate in collaboration, and we work to focus on that same core demographic. And if you ask me, my mindset behind it is empower, educate, but really bring transformation, not information. Right? The goal of Torah is transformation and revelation. It's not about this is what God said, know it because this is what God said only. It's about this is what God said. Like this is a massive opportunity. Like the creator of the universe gave us guidance about how we can live our lives and educate and empower ourselves and bring about a massive transformation that lasts for eternity. The work that we do in the world and the work that we do on ourselves is not just temporal today. It's forever. And when you can live with an eternity mindset, right, and you appreciate like there really is eternity. And that's why if you know there's a God and you know there's an eternity and he's enduring our existence for all eternity, which is actually a tremendous kindness.
I don't know what's scary. If that's not true, or it is true.
That's
Either is scary.
Either is scary, right? If you want to bleep out, like that's actually amazingly simple. If a person believes that this is the end of it all,
it's terrifying. If it's just after someone passes away, it's done. That is a terrifying thought.
It could be, but it also can be very relieving. For some people, that's very relieving. You can create an entire episode of horror and you have no consequences. There's no repercussions. I've done everything that I wanted to do and I've got away with it. Yes.
Right.
Like it's scary to think that person get away with it, right? But if you understand eternity and longevity of eternity, right, and the opportunity of eternity, well, then you're like, there's no such thing as getting away with it. You're accountable for it, for everything, right? Not that God wants to whack us on things, but the opportunity that you have an opportunity to fix everything. You have an opportunity to develop and patient. It's like a patient educator and parent who's just wants the best for you, which God wants. God wants all of us, all of humanity to achieve its ultimate self-actualization. And I feel like that goes back to the core mission that I tried to deliver. It's like we are an engine of self-actualization using Torah technology. That's what we want Olami Toronto to be. And we really want people to find value in Judaism because it helps them align to their ultimate higher self that they know exists. Right? Many people are not rarely to have every person be like, I don't know, there's no such thing as an ultimate higher self within me. It doesn't exist. Right?
So it's interesting. I'm a bit more cynical when it comes to human beings, as maybe you've picked up. I've benefited tremendously from Olamia before, so I'm grateful. It's impacted my life in a positive way. Before you got here, I was very much involved with some of the programs. I have a question for you. More of a philosophical one. Do you believe people are fundamentally good or bad?
Fundamentally good. People are fundamentally good. There's a fascinating doctor, psychologist. Her name is Dr. Becky. I think it's like Dr. Becky Friedman, and her podcast is called, in her book, called "The Good Inside," right? And this is a fundamental philosophy that a non-Jewish, right?
Becky Friedman's not Jewish.
Yeah, ironically, but it's a non-Jewish author and psychologist who her entire philosophical underpinning behind her approach to children and childhood development is good inside. That children are inherently good, and really all people are inherently good inside. So I'm just saying, like, that's already normative, and she's massively successful.
It's like a Rousseauian kind of idea, which has the consequences of that idea seem
that people are good inside.
Yeah, fundamentally good.
I think we are. That's our soul, right? Now, what happens is that we do have a counterpart, right? God placed in us what's called the Yetzer Hara, this powerful energy force that is there to create the balance, which allows for free choice to exist. Because if you left in your natural state without a Yetzer Hara, you would be a malach. You'd be an angel. You'd be a divine being, totally always dedicated to good. But now that you're in the body, and now that you're in this system, God's like, I'm going to give you a sparring partner, which now allows you to now feel the opposite side. And you, as whoever you are with a Y, capital Y, you are the mediator and arbitrator and chooser between these two compelling forces. So and because of that, that's what allows it to be what's called reward and punishment, right? I don't like the word punishment. It's really reward and fixings, but it's the idea in the sense that because there is a mediator and arbitrator, you have free choice. You get to choose. And when we empower ourselves by learning Torah, we're allowing the fight to be easier because we're strengthening the side to choose easier for the good. It's like you're on a diet. Not that you need a diet.
Oh, I need a diet.
No. But you're on a diet.
I've been told, by the way, that being overweight is beautiful and healthy. So I'm just going to take that.
Speak to your local cardiologist, general practitioner, nutritionist before recommending.
Not health advice, not financial advice.
No repercussions. So when we think about the bounty counterpart, we need to have freedom of choice. And because God wants to give the ultimate reward to us, right? This is the time for the reward, but I can't give you a reward unless you chose something for it, right? So we ultimately want to and should identify with our neshama, which is who we are. That is who we
being
are.
the soul.
The neshama being the soul, who we are. But there's a counterpoint there, right? But ultimately, who we are is that neshama, and our job is to allow it to be the true you, the choosing you that you identify with. Right. So anything else other than that is really an aberration of the choosing you.
So let's, because a lot of the people that may listen to this are very ambitious people that are trying to build something, a business, or they're already kind of maybe on their way. What would be like your recommendation, Jews and non-Jews alike? Like, what is a practical thing they can start doing if they want to incorporate more of these ideas into their daily life to like help them succeed?
First of all, I was mentioning this. And it's axiomatic in Judaism. There's a concept called "Ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha," right? You should love your friend like you love yourself, right? One of the great sages was asked, "Teach me the entire Torah on one foot," and this is what he said: "Ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha." Love your friend or love yourself. Zil v'gamor. The rest is go and learn the rest of the commentary, right? But what does that mean? It means that there's an idea of interpersonal relationship, right? But which is ultimately so powerful and true, but premised on this concept is kemocha, like you love yourself. So if you want to love somebody else, you have to love yourself. So I would say, like, when you're starting spiritual journeys, the first thing that needs to be calibrated is your relationship with yourself. Are you in love with yourself?
Yes.
Are you, are you, not egotistically, but are you your own best friend? How do you talk to yourself? What are the words and tones that you say within inside yourself? What's your inner dialogue or monologue sound like when you're acknowledging or working within yourself? And I think that the recommendation in order for a person to even have that is creating space for oneself. So what's a practical recommendation? Do some e-dieting, which means don't have your phone on you, right? Take away the opportunity for things to interject into your consciousness and create a separate time for you just to experiencing yourself. And when you create that space, now you have a vacuum where you can actually just be with yourself, share your thoughts, feel your feelings. And not in like a touchy-feely way, because feelings sound very like, oh, I'm too busy for feelings.
Very new age type.
Yeah, very new age.
Crunchy.
But look, I'm also trained as an executive coach.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of my additional trainings. I've been trained from a Torah side base of coaching, but also ICF certified, Internet Coaching Federation trained. And there's a beautiful model called the EQI. And in this EQI model, it provides 15 different subsets of like what makes up emotional intelligence. And at the spine of this system is self-awareness. Self-awareness, right? And emotional self-awareness, and also self-regard, which means, are you aware of what's going on inside you? Are you emotionally tapped in to your feelings and thoughts and how you make other people feel and think? And also, do you appreciate and respect and accept yourself? Like those three pieces are at the spine and central body of an emotional intelligence training system, which executive coaches use all the time to help transform leaders on a one-on-one basis, right? So really, this is just a tool within that spectrum. And it sounds new agey, but if you speak to executive coaches today and what they're trying to work with their senior leadership, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar enterprises, right? Self-awareness is key.
Sounds terrifying.
It is terrifying, but the leader who's self-aware, right, is the leader who's able to truly lead.
Like maybe you can go into that a little bit, because
Yeah.
self-aware sounds easy. I'm kind of joking saying it's terrifying, but it does sound easy, but I know it's not, because I've tried to do this, right, myself.
Yeah.
It's something that I've implemented since I was 18 or 19, and I recorded, right? I have thousands of entries into this. Cheshbon nefesh in the Hebrew, a spiritual accounting. So I used 2 minutes a night, 3 minutes a night, whatever it is, but religiously. And I just, reflect, write down how, good or bad, something I usually have an exercise. And that changed my life, because it forces me to kind of like stop everything and just think about, okay, what am I doing? Right. And it's scary, because if you actually give yourself the space to reflect in a consistent way, you learn things about yourself that are very scary.
Yeah. And first of all, I think that's what makes you unique, right? That's a diligent practice that I highly respect. I don't know if many business leaders take to that practice, right? They should, but that itself is already a high level, right? Of giving yourself space to reflect and refine yourself. And I think if you were to look at senior leaders who are transforming their businesses and their cultures, and I think these are the people who must have some sort of zone of this self-reflection and self-awareness space. But for other people, they're hustling, right? And they believe that hustling is the way to go. And I don't deny it. Like, I'm hustling all the time, but I also daven and pray 3 times a day, which allow me to connect to my creator, connect to myself, and to be able to bring out those reflection points in a healthy, constructive space all the time. And I use those prayers for that. And if you actually look at the Hebrew word for prayer, it's hitpalel, right? And hitpalel in Hebrew is a reflexive verb, which, if you don't know what reflexive means, it means it goes something you do to yourself. So am I praying to myself? That's what prayer is. So one of the definitions of palel is to judge oneself, not like in a negative way, but to review. So hitpalel, prayer, is a sense and an opportunity of self-reflection. And in that space of self-reflection, you now go to the creator and be like, God, this is who I am. I need your help on this one. Look who I've become. Or look who I've become. Amazing. Like, thank you. Or look who I've become. Please help me. And it becomes an opportunity for transformation, and we're talking to God to be a partner in your creation process, to become your ultimate divine self in his image. Like, God, you made me. You want me to be like you. You told me to be in God's image. So you want me to be like you. I see I got this problem right now. I need you to come help me out, because I can't do this without you. I need the manual. I need the instructions. You're the maker. It's like when you have a problem with your car, right? You don't call McDonald's, chas v'shalom. That's the wrong address, right? You got to call your dealer. And if the dealer's
Drug dealer.
Not the drug dealer. And if you call the dealer has a problem, who's he calling? He's calling headquarters, right? Who's working with the mechanical engineers and the auto engineers who designed the system in the first place, right? They're going all the way back up. And so when you're connecting to God, you're going all the way back to the original engineer. And you're saying, I need your help. Look what I'm going through right now. Or, thank you so much. Look what you've accomplished because of what you've given me, right? It's a totally different dynamic. Right. So I have space. I want more space, but I have some space. But for the listeners out there, create space for yourself. Become a self-aware leader. And give yourself that zone of opportunity to breathe and relax. Because once you've allowed yourself to be unfettered and not in that busyness mindset, because business and busyness are similar, right? Not all the times is the busyness driving your business. It sometimes drives dizziness, not the busyness.
That's true.
Right.
So the first thing is self-reflection. That's obviously great advice. And you have it structured in your day at least through prayer, right? Some people don't have that. So obviously I would encourage them to set time aside in their day to do that. A lot of people are struggling, business. Listen, it's always hard it's never been easy to build a successful business, right? So I don't want to say it's particularly hard now, because it's always been hard. But what advice would you give someone to stay positive, when things are not going right? Because I'll tell you, you probably know this from your own experience, obviously, that building anything worthwhile, it's not a straight line. There's a lot of, it's always a struggle. Like, how does someone stay positive, like when they're facing rejection and failure constantly?
So first of all, it's validating and normalizing rejection and failure, right? I had a chance to speak with Miles Nadal.
Who is
Miles Nadal? In case you don't, you can Google him. He's
very rich.
he's very rich. He's an amazing entrepreneur, right? Out of here in Toronto. And impressive story. Really came from rags to riches, and a tremendous sense of generosity and philanthropy that is exhibited throughout his entire growth and journey as well. And I had a chance to speak with Miles on it. And one of the students asked from the audience, like, I'm trying to build a business. It's very hard to raise money. Like, what do I do? Right? And Miles was like, I'm trying to build a business and I'm trying to raise money and it's very hard for me to do. Right? And he's basically saying that, like, it's always going to be hard. Right? Building business and getting money to do your business is not easy work. So if you come in and see obstacles, right, you have to appreciate no one goes into the Navy SEALs training program thinking that they're going to be hanging out at Starbucks. Right? They understand that it is going to be grueling. Right? And I think there's a misconception, right, from the entrepreneurial space. And sometimes different podcasts and social media influencers feed this misconception that it's easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
It's not easy.
If anything, I encourage people to quit.
No, I wouldn't say that either, but you got to be gritty.
Right.
You got to be tenacious.
A lot of people should quit. A lot of people aren't, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. They were sold a bill of goods and they'll be happier doing something else. Not everyone.
It could be. To be an entrepreneur is someone who's passionate, right? You have to be passionate about your cause or passionate about what you're doing or passionate about making money, but you got to be passionate, right? You can't just be like, I'm just looking for something to do.
A payday or something. Right?
Yeah. The entrepreneur who's looking for a payday is not an entrepreneur. Right. Now, you could be motivated by money. That's okay. But I think the most successful entrepreneurs are people they're passionate people. They're people who are captivated and motivated by the idea, and they think this idea can work and it can influence the world, and they believe they can get a pay out of it. And they should be looking at it. If they're an entrepreneur and they're trying to get an ROI, they have to be very clear and transparent. Like, is this actually going to deliver a real ROI here, or am I too passionate? Sometimes passion can blind people. And that was just another piece of the puzzle. It's just talking about like biases, right? People are very biased, have self-biases. It's hard to see themselves, right? And that's why when you just mentioned before you mentioned the journaling work that you did, you're talking about, well, doesn't everyone do this stuff? And I'd say, like, first of all, not everyone has the discipline to do it, but then there's also natural biases. And sometimes we need a system or a third party to help us step outside of who we are in our own mind, you act as a mirror to let us see ourselves. Mm-hmm. And in those spaces, that's when we're truly able to then have better self-awareness and better growth. And that's why there's something called, 360-degree trainings or 360-degree analytics or programs that are available for people to get diagnostic information about how they show up in the world or the workplace, so they can be like, oh, I think I'm like
right?
this.
Usually it's anonymously, right?
It could be anonymously. It depends on which program you're using. A lot of different ones. Some are anonymous, some are not anonymous.
It's crazy. Right? I just spoke to someone that sold a business, co-founded a business for $1.6 billion. And he said one of the ways he was able to scale that business when it was really tough, it was exactly this 360-degree kind of like, they got an executive coach and implemented this program and learned so much about himself. It's like, that really changed how I was a manager. And without doing that, he would not have been able to scale his business.
Yeah, because once again, at the center of any enterprise is the entrepreneur, right? It's the incubator, it's the you behind everything, right? And that's why for a lot of the pitches that I tell to students, it's like, when you develop yourself and you develop your true being, you're going to be better at everything. Mm-hmm. Right? You're going to be better at your business. You're going to be better at your marriage. You're going to be better at your partnerships. You're going to be better at everything because you are better. You've risen the tide of your personality. Therefore, all boats in the harbor rise when the tide comes in. So too, when the tide comes in of your qualities and character strengths, everything ascends. Mm-hmm. Every aspect of your life ascends.
I just want to go back to that idea of, okay, you have someone that's struggling, in keeping a positive mindset. Your response was more like, well, business is tough, kind of be prepared for that. Is that really the, I hear that.
Yeah,
it's
that's not the only solution.
Tough love. Okay, maybe do you have any other solution?
Yeah, sure. That was just validating and normalizing. That's always a sense number one, like you're normal. It is tough. But I think that's an important piece because if you don't have that, you can feel like you're an aberration. And the other one is also knowing how to actually develop and engender your own good feelings, right? So this is something that I coach students in and other executives in, which is how to create your own power phrase, right? Which is a short, psychologically rooted phrase that is pinpointed to give you energy you need in a specific area and time of your life. So some people might call it a mantra, but I call it the power phrase. And the difference is that it's not just like a random mantra of like, do good, be good. It's something specifically catered to what you need at that moment. And it's a self-talk exercise. And I recommend when you craft this self-talk exercise, it can be 10 words, right? Give me 12 words. But whatever it is, you're saying it in a way that allows you to believe it. And you're actually engendering your subconscious self to absorb this message. And
Do you have a power phrase?
I have a few of them. It depends on what areas of my life. I have different areas for different phrases. So I actually have a power like song, but it's not power. It's it goes like, so there's a phrase, Gam Zu Latova. Gam Zu Latova in Judaism means like, this is also for the good. But not this is also for good. Like, this is also good. It really means like, this is good. This is good. Even if it's hard, this is good. The good is here. It's painful. No. It in essence is good. That's what Gam Zu Latova really means. So I have like a little song that I sing to myself. It's like, it's like happy-go-lucky, but it actually is a paradigm shifter. Because imagine you're experiencing something very tough, and all of a sudden you hear this. Gam Zu Latova, this is what we say. Gam Zu Latova, when things don't go my way. And then I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah, okay. And I realized I'm like, yeah, okay, I can smile through this. This is tough, but that's my little melody line. And that's an example of a power phrase, right? But they can be oh so different with any different type of thing. Like there's other experiences, other ones I say like, I'm in the right time, I'm in the right place, I'm with the right wife, in the right life. Right? Just like a total acceptance of just like, here I am. Everything that I have in my life is exactly as it needs to be. It's all good, right? It just realigns me. And so like, these are different phrases that I've developed for myself, right? At different times. And I have other ones that I've built and I throw away, right? Depending on what I need them for. But this is one of those things. And so how do you develop them, right? These are these power phrases, these anchors, really just, you have to phrase it. It's a whole methodology, but whatever, we can Google it, you can find it, you can find more information on it, right? There's a whole bevy of information of how to develop these things, but creating a power phrase for yourself, I think, is a powerful way to engender and awaken that subconscious and give it the messaging that it needs, right? Speaking to that inner child, that will help really lower the temperature of a lot of issues.
So I guess we're going to wrap up here. It's been a very helpful conversation, by the way.
Thank you.
Do you have any book recommendations for entrepreneurs or people that want to get into the nonprofit space or anything? Any book recommendation that like anyone you'll meet, just say you have to read this book, aside from the Bible or Torah?
Except for, the Talmud. There's a great book that I really enjoy called The Leadership Challenge. It's a classic book, and it really describes like different modalities of needed leadership, like how they operate and how to develop them. And like it demystifies leadership in a very big way. And I feel like for an entrepreneur to really be successful, you're a leader. Like it sounds, you might be like, I'm a programmer, I'm not really a leader. At the end of the day, if you're hiring people and you're firing people and you're praising people and you're rewarding people and like you need people, and like unless you're able to do everything by yourself, right? It could be, but I think today you need partners, you need partnerships. So that's leadership. Those are leadership qualities. I felt The Leadership Challenge is a fantastic book that really just spells things out, demystifies, clarifies, provides great examples, and it really helps the person realize as an entrepreneur, how do I use leadership qualities as an entrepreneur to drive the business? And I really feel like that's a great starting place for any book.
That's a great recommendation. Rabbi Josh Kaller, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's been a great conversation. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
For those out there, if you want to get involved in Olami, you want to maybe explore your Jewish heritage, or just want to see what they're doing, we're going to leave a link down below for some of their programs and a way to get in touch with Rabbi Kaller. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for having me.